Here we are at Standard 6 of the Personal Financial Literacy Standards for Oklahoma. This standard is closely related and can sometimes overlap with Standard 5 of saving and investing. And Standard 6, retirement, is reported by Oklahoma teachers as one of the most challenging standards to teach. So it's one of my favorite standards to talk about. Whenever we do surveys or do polls for teachers, whether it's for teachers across the whole state altogether or in a specific district or area, retirement is always at the top as being the toughest standard to teach. And it's not because there's a lack of resources. There's tons of resources in teaching retirement, all from all over in our state and all over our country, and different resources to teach it. So it's not a lack of resources that the challenge is. It's because it's difficult to help students connect with retirement. It seems so far off. If they don't even know what they want to do as their job in a year or two or tomorrow, how can they connect with retirement? So it's a big challenge that we have, but there's lots of ways to do that in selling retirement to teenagers. So in the classroom, something to be prepared for is a common misconception among high school students is that retirement just happens. Well, yes, retirement can just happen whether you're ready for it or not. Recently, when I was in a high school class visiting with students about retirement, we had several expert speakers that had spoken about saving and preparing for retirement. So we'd had really healthy discussion. And there were still questions that we got from students of, now, how much am I going to get when I retire? The thought that it just happens, that money is just given to them or is there, just magically appears. So that's something that we really have to work through and help students understand that it's something that they prepare for and it's something that they build on their own. And then it doesn't just happen. And what does just happen, such as Social Security, which still doesn't just happen, you have to work for that too. But even that is how that impacts their income. It's a very small part of what they should be planning for. We'll talk about that in a little bit with the State Department curriculum. But another way to connect retirement is to show students that they need to start now or as soon as possible in preparing for retirement, showing how compound interest works and the impact of starting at age 18 versus 26 or 28 or whatever age you choose, showing that chart and the significant difference that makes of starting early and starting now. That's really a great way to connect it. Now, one thing that's important to let them know is that in order to save for retirement, they really need to start with being able to pay all of their bills. They need to have an emergency fund in place before they can start to build their retirement. And then that is step 3. Being able to do those things such as paying bills and having that emergency fund is vital to have healthy financial choices. And that's what we're wanting to build, is healthy financial choices and habits now as teenagers. Okay, so I'm going to hop over to the State Department curriculum. So the Oklahoma State Department of Education website is where you will find all of the materials for teaching personal finance specific to our state standards. This is really a good baseline to start with to make sure that you're meeting all the standards. There's so many, as I mentioned, especially in retirement, there's lots of resources out there, and there's a lot of great resources out there, but sometimes they don't meet all the standards. Sometimes they'll say addresses the standards, or they'll make it sound like they meet the standards, or just because it says retirement, you may think that it does. But we have a pretty complex set of standards in our state, so it's important to make sure that you're covering all those components. So the State Department curriculum is really a good baseline, and then adding in other activities and resources to help spice things up or to add more activity and engagement in your classroom. So starting with the student lesson 6.1, planning for your retirement, is what we start with. And it's going to start off, the main point is to identify and evaluate different retirement options. And so, and again, this is a tough standard to get students to connect with. There's some big words that they may have never heard before. Annuity, defined benefit plan. These are all new things, and it can seem overwhelming. And one of the big things to teach them is that it's okay that you don't know what all of these things mean, but to have an awareness that what it does and what they can do for your financial planning, and where to go when you need more resources and help, who to talk to, where to find sound information is really an important part of this as well. So there, it goes through a scenario where there's two twin sisters or grandparents are getting ready to retire, and kind of looking at their scenarios and in retirement and what that looks like, and walking through those scenarios to help connect with the retirement a little bit more. Then it goes into sources of retirement funds. So it goes over several different options. One of the things that I think is important in here is Social Security, and looking at Social Security while that happens when you're working and drawing Social Security benefits or building that up, it's just a very small part of your retirement, or should just be a small part of your retirement. It's very similar to living on minimum wage. And so to get them to connect with living on minimum wage is pretty tough to do. And if that's what they're planning to do for their retirement, they may not be able to do all that they need to do in retirement. They may need to live in a much smaller house. They may not be able to support anybody else or do anything else but very basic living. So what else are they going to need to do to build their retirement? And so it goes through lots of different options and how they can start preparing and planning and just thinking about getting ready for that. I think another big point is if we can get our students to, as soon as they have the opportunity to have retirement savings or matches with their next employer, that they choose, yes, I know that that's something I want to do, that they're prepared for that decision. That's another great point to make sure students understand. So it goes through these different points of preparing and planning for your retirement. Then it goes into a review of it, write the definition for each of the different retirement incomes so they can help to identify the differences. Then it goes into an activity, retirement plans activity. Use a table on the page to complete the following questions. So looking at what are the advantages to different contribution plans, disadvantages that go along with them, and how they can compare one to another. Then there's a great chart. This is a great way to help students see the differences in each of these options. Then the next activity, retirement plans activity, it gives students a scenario that they have a new job with a salary of $60,000, and it might be good to point out that's a good scenario. Is that a realistic? At what point may they have a job of $60,000? Do most people start off with a job of $60,000 a year? So kind of point that out. Sometimes they don't realize whether that's a really good salary or not a good salary. Just so help them to connect what kind of jobs have a salary of $60,000, and how likely that would be when they would have a job of $60,000, which would obviously be based on what kind of job they have. But then going into, so they have this new job with a salary of $60,000, and their employer is going to match their contributions. So this is where we're getting into things they want to be prepared for and ready when they get an option to get a retirement match. That what are they going to say? And what does a match look like? So they're going to find the maximum amount of the match, and they're going to multiply their salary by the employer's percent to find the annual total amount of the match. So it says up here that the retirement account is up to 7%. So then it goes through the scenario. Are they going to put in a full 7%? What are they going to do? And what are the differences of both? Why might they do different amounts? And looking at that match, which would of course be based on their income or ability to provide that amount to go towards that match. So that is student lesson 6.1. So now we're going to go into student lesson 6.2, which then looks at longevity and retirement. So examining the investment needs of different individuals and making recommendations for their retirement strategies, and then evaluating longevity and lifespan statistics. That's a really important thing for students to be thinking about. What is their lifespan predictability? And there are different calculators you can use, and an average life expectancy, and what they should think about doing, so they could really put some numbers around that and really start to plan, not just have a number out there that they have no idea if that's how to make that count towards their planning. So it goes through the lesson and talking about how different factors affect it, whether you're healthy or not. Says here, due to advancements in medicine and other health related factors, people now live much longer than in previous generations. So those are important things to consider and for them to really be thinking about. So then going into determining the need, so looking at the need of your retirement and how it changes. If you wait until your 30s to start investing for your retirement, you will have about 30 years before you retire. And of course, that's a really good time to bring in that compound interest. But what is the difference if they started at 20 versus 30? Those are really good points to make sure your students understand. Retirement income shortfalls, and looking at those are really important for students to look at. It has in here 3 steps to consider to increase your retirement savings. So if you're wanting to take vacations, you may need to adjust those plans. And maybe you're not going to be taking European vacations or across the world vacations. Maybe a local lake is what you're going to be looking at, and help them to really connect that. Okay, am I okay with that? Do I want more for myself? Now's the time to make changes and to be thinking about that. Other opportunities and preparing for retirement is maybe working a little bit longer and postponing retirement. Maybe you wait a couple more years to accumulate more money and wealth and support into your retirement income. And then increasing contributions to your retirement account, putting more money aside now. And again, that compound interest just makes a huge difference. So this really gets into the depth of retirement and looking at that, the longevity of your life. There's a review for it. Then we are going to, we have an activity analyzing your retirement needs, and it has a chart there looking at life expectancy, which there's also lots of online tools and calculators for that as well. And then using that table up there to answer the questions. According to the table, what is the average life expectancy for someone your age and gender? Then it also asked them to notice that in the chart it said that males do not have the same life expectancy as females, and ask them to analyze that. Why do you think women tend to live longer than men? And to really think about that. That's an important part of planning for your future. So then it goes on to use the table and to assess those needs and to go a little bit deeper into different scenarios. So that goes into 6.2. All right, I wanted to show you a resource that you can use, actually 2 resources, one general resource for all of the standards. This is moneyisokay.org that you can go to, and you can scroll down here. This is a website that is designed specifically for Oklahoma teachers teaching personal finance. So it's geared just to our standards and finding specific needs for what we have in our personal financial literacy standards in Oklahoma. So you can click on these different standards. I'm going to click on Standard 6, retirement planning, since that's what we are discussing. And when I open up this, it is going to have all sorts of resources specifically for teaching retirement. At the top, it'll always have the State Department curriculum that we just went through. And then there are several other resources that you can access to help enhance teaching retirement. One that I wanted to specifically point out to you is a student-created retirement digital vision board. This is a great resource to use in any style of teaching that you are doing, whether that's online, in person, some of both, or it's really a great activity to help students get thinking about personal finance. You could do it anytime. This could be a great activity if there's a snow day, but you're still having a school day, and to assign them this activity. But what it really does is help students really think about and prepare for themselves retiring and put themselves, what are they going to do? What is that going to look like? So the end result of this is creating a vision board. And so this is done off of Google, Google Slides, where they create a slide. This is the final one. You could either have them do this one final one and that's all, or have several different boards that lead up to this last one where they're answering different questions having to do with retirement. So it gives a whole step by step. It's laid out for if somebody has never used Google before. So it really lays it out and using Google Slides. But it starts with having students brainstorm their vision of retirement, give them good guiding questions and even stories to help them imagine retirement and the lifestyle that they want. Who do they know that's retired? What do they want to be doing? Do they want to be taking that European vacation? All those things. So have them picture themselves in retirement. What does it look like? How old are they? But they go through and ask. You can discuss this in class or on Zoom, however you're delivering your class at the time. And then you have them go through and answer those questions on a slide and creating an actual slide. So they'll answer, what do they want to accomplish? What do they still want to accomplish? And they'll account for that and answer that by creating a vision board. So through pictures, not necessarily text. So then they also figure out what their life expectancy is. And there's some that go even more into it, like this one with blueprint income. It also goes into factors like health, lifestyle. It even includes smoking and drinking, all sorts of other things. But do note that it goes much deeper into the longevity and different scenarios in that. So then you'll instruct them. These are the instructions for actually creating the Google Slides. They can include text, shapes, lines, arrows, emojis, whatever you want them to do to depict that they understand what is going on. So again, their final product is going to be this picture up here. And so this student, she plans to she wants to retire at the age of 65. Her life expectancy was 86. She wants to be a realtor. So that's what she's basing the majority of her income for preparing for retirement will come from being a realtor. With that, she also plans to have rental properties to help supplement her income before and after retirement, while she's in retirement, to help out with that. And she wants to be taking cruises, and 401k is a big part of her retirement plan. She also wants to volunteer and give time. And so that's why she wants to retire early so that she can do that. This is all part of the activity and exercise. What do you want to be doing? Do you want to be helping out your community? So it goes through all of this. I think this was depicting that she wanted to be hanging out with her grandkids and on vacation doing things like this. So this really helps prepare them for visualizing themselves as retirement and that it's not just something that happens. I think this can also be used for an assessment. I think this really depicts all the parts of the standard, what their life expectancy, how they're going to prepare for it, what they need to be doing. I think it could also be an opening lesson, just giving it to them and answering those questions that are in there and finding those answers. It can also be used for that. So this is a great little activity that you can find on moneyisok.org. Okay. Oh, and one other resource I wanted to show you. This is an article, Giving Kids an Early Financial Education Pays Off in the Future. But one of the main things that I wanted to show you here was this little chart that shows that compounding interest could make the average saver a millionaire over time. And showing them, it doesn't have to be this chart. This was just a good example of one where I especially liked it because it starts at age 18. Sometimes they don't start till they're 25 or something like that, but showing that if they start at age 18, so right over here, how that builds up and what that looks like with saving $200 a month, and showing them that they could be a millionaire over time if they don't dip into that retirement or do anything else. That's a really good type of chart to show them. Okay, well, please let us know if you have any questions at the State Department of Education or at the Oklahoma Council on Economic Education where I'm at. We are here to help and serve you in teaching personal finance and want to help in any way we can. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time, and we hope to hear from you about teaching retirement or any other standard.